I just want to, before we speak about this session and the speaker that you're waiting for, I just want to tell you that you were almost betrayed, and the speaker, who has not been named yet, almost didn't come. But the reason he almost didn't come is a good one, which is that he was babysitting his daughter and almost did not want to come to your city because he did not want to give up his evening with his daughter. But finally, Bengaluru prevailed, and he is here. You know, we said earlier that there's an uncommon strand that runs through all three sessions, even though one was about the Upanishads, one was about politics and economy in contemporary India, and the next is going to be about cinema and the imagination, and perhaps the role of the artist as a political citizen as well. So the common thread really is that all three speakers are attempting to do what is really, as I said, the algebra spirit, which is to create space for conversation. Farhan Akhtar is known as many things. He's known, as we called him, a heart magnet. Earlier when he's come to algebra, we've called him the algorithm of Kult. He is, of course, the producer, director, actor, you know, someone we know from Dawn and from Zindagi Dobara Na Milega and Dil Chahta Hai. And what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong?
I should have stayed home with my daughter.
Sorry. 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 Dil dhadakne do. Yeah. Okay, I'll just stick with that first seminal one. You know, Dil Chahta Hai, I got that correct. But you know, those are not the ways in which one wants to describe him, because those are ways that we already know him. For me, I think the real excitement of having Farhan Akhtar here today is three things. One, that he is someone who is a superlative artist, but is somebody who is still going beyond the call of duty to really redefine the mustache. You know, he is trying to redefine masculinity, both in the artistic choices he makes, perhaps in the way he lives his life, and certainly in his political articulation. The other thing, as I said, strangely, the common thread is that we heard Mr. Yashwant Sinha talking about the fuel crisis and the fuel prices, and this seems to have exercised Farhan Akhtar hugely, because he's been tweeting about the fuel prices, but that's not what's interesting. He has been trolled endlessly for doing that. What's interesting is how he has been responding to that kind of negative trolling. It is with humor, it is with affection, it is with great scorn, but delivered with love. And I think the more we can bring that into our public conversation, we will be making some headway in what many people feel is a dark time. So, ladies and gentlemen, to welcome the superstar that you've all been waiting for, to welcome the artist, the director, the actor, but certainly somebody who's trying to balance the yin and yang of what it is to be both a man and an artist. Before I call him on, we're going to show a little clip of his work, and which will remind us of just why we are so excited to have him here today. So, ladies and gentlemen, a glimpse of Farhan Akhtar. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Farhan Akhtar.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Have I got the angle wrong? Oh, that's correct. Okay. There's a camera focused on only one chair, not the other chair, so I don't want to usurp that position. Thank you, Farhan. Sorry for getting the name of your film wrong.
No, actually, I think we've titled that film wrong. No, I'm not kidding. Every single person that I've met very rarely has somebody got the title of that film right. They all say, "वो आपकी फिल्म मुझे बहुत अच्छी लगी थी, वो जिंदगी वो वाली."
I have to tell you that I travel with a diplomatic passport given to me by your father, which is that he said, because you're a Bengali, you're constitutionally protected from not being able to speak Hindi correctly. So I stand here with immunity. You know. I could have mentioned Rock On and Bhag Milka Bhag. I would have been in much safer ground. You know. But anyway, so Farhan, I just want to, like we said, you know, we'll come to your artists, your work as an artist later. We've been talking about this space of public conversation that we all are part of now. And there are two very interesting things that you've been doing. One is about the way, as I said, that you're taking on Twitter negativity. And the other is your very sustained engagement with masculinity and what it means, you know. And coming out of this kind of season of horrific rapes, Kathua, you know, in UP and everywhere else, But those are really the extremes. There is just a kind of masculinity in our society which is very worrying. Would you talk to us about how you're trying to change this? What is the new kind of construct of how to be a man that you would like to espouse? And what was the trigger for you to get engaged with this whole issue in the first place?
The trigger really was, there were three incidents which really, really did shake me. The first one was an employee of our company, Excel Entertainment. She worked in the legal department. Her name was Pallavi. She was murdered in her apartment by her security person, the security watchman, who tried to rape her. She fought him off, and then he murdered her. That was the first thing that really, really shook me. The second was the Delhi gang rape that had happened, which I think really shook the world, including me. And the third was very close on the heels of the Delhi incident, was another incident of, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember very clearly, it was either an 8-month or a 9-month-old baby who was very, very badly brutalized by her neighbor. And had, I'm sorry to get graphic, but just so that you understand why it has really shaken me so much, had objects put into her, like a bottle of amla oil. So when they rescued the baby, they had to actually surgically remove all those things from inside of her. So to me, those three, I mean, there was a lot of rage at that point, and a lot of sorrow as well. And more often than not, when incidents like this would happen, I'd find myself trying to numb this feeling of rage that I had, and it would involve drinking with friends, venting a lot, you know, and saying nothing can be done and nothing is going to ever happen, and, you know, just being really negative, I think, about it. And it came to a point with these three incidents, more or less back to back, that I did feel that I somehow have to get involved in a way that's not just sitting in one room and talking to friends and venting. I have to figure out what I can do. And a few conversations that I had with people who are in the field, you know, and who have a lot more knowledge about it than I do. I do even now. They spoke to me, and through those conversations, I felt that there was a lot of work already being done with women to rehabilitate survivors, to laws to protect them with policing. All of that was going on, which is rightfully so. But there was very little attention being paid to what it is that we can do about the men who grow up to think that this kind of behavior is okay. And I really thought that that would be the area for me then to focus on, and to go to schools and colleges where kids are at the cusp of becoming men, or at least considering themselves men. And what do they base this opinion of being a man on? So try to speak to them about that and try to understand that, and then hopefully give them some direction. That it's not really, because all the impulses I feel that we get from cultural impulses or social impulses more and more, and I even blame film for that, is that men have to always, they're aggressive when they want something, you know, jab commitment kar li to, you know, like that kind of thing. You know, so there's always this thing that you cannot take no for an answer. If you put your mind to something, you have to get it. Love stories that we grew up watching were very different. This became very different in the 90s and a little bit into the 2000s as well, where what the villain would do with the heroine, stalk her, tease her beyond a certain point, invade her privacy, try to force himself on her. The villain was replaced by the lead actor, and the lead actor would eventually get the girl because he's the lead actor in the film and it's scripted that way. So the impulses that was sending out, then plus all the comments that you'd hear in the wake of any incident, boys will be boys, and, you know, just that whole thing, that I just felt that when young boys and young men are watching this, or watching these films, or watching this on the news and probably finding it funny and laughing, and so they're just kind of creating this image in their heads that if I want to be a man, if I fall in love, how do I behave? This is what you're constantly inculcating as values within yourself. And I did feel that it would be nice to go and engage with them and try to maybe get them to understand that it's not that, and that you have to focus on, like you said, on the yin and the yang. It can't just be one, and try to find a balance. It's good to be sensitive. It's okay to cry. It's extremely macho to be able to take no as an answer. I think it's more macho to be able to take no as an answer.
Well said.
So things like this, and we've been doing that since 2013. I've been to now over, I think, about 120, 130 colleges across India, and been doing this Mard initiative with them.
Fantastic, Farhan.
Thank you.
As you said, to replace the idea of kind of brute strength with the idea of just sensitivity and empathy is fantastic. Again, I know we've spoken about this earlier, but this is a new audience that it's fascinating that you picked the mustache, and as I said, that you're trying to redefine the mustache. Why did you pick that? And then, just how you're trying to contour that differently?
We wanted the logo, the first impression that you have of what it is that we are trying to talk about. We started with the name. We were thinking of what the name could be. After speaking about it a lot, we thought it should be called Mard, which means man. But then, as the acronym, it means Men Against Rape and Discrimination. So every time you hear the word Mard, it makes you think of somebody who's against that kind of behavior. And then visually and symbolically, we thought the mustache, also with the M and or the A, could work nicely. And it also is very representative of masculinity on some level. When you grow a mustache, if you consider yourself to be a bit strong and a bit powerful. So just to take that and again preach you the same or tell you the same kind of value system that we are hopefully wanting these kids to think about seriously. And so when they see a mustache as well, they're kind of reminded of the same thing.
So, Farhan, will you share any incident from your life where you've balanced the yin and yang, where you've kind of had some conflict which you've managed differently? Maybe you were different earlier, you've progressed on a certain journey. Can you share something internal with us which would manifest this?
I think on a huge level when we were growing up, it was also a time, I feel, where media, in terms of just, whether it was, I'm not talking about journalistic media with film, because I wasn't in film when I was growing up, but social, Instagramming or WhatsApping or Facebook, it really wasn't around. So your behavior was a lot more uninhibited, because you never felt that somebody will shoot a video of you and put it somewhere. So I went through the whole process. I did have a lot of rage inside of me when I was growing up, and a lot of it got kind of directed towards wanting to deal with it through drinking, actually, when I was growing up. So I used to get drunk a lot, and with drinking a lot also comes misbehaving a lot. And at times I would misbehave, not to an extent where it would be criminal misbehavior, but you do misbehave, and you do somehow imagine scenarios in your head that don't exist because your mind is not working correctly. So that did happen, and at that time, Zoya, who's my sister, was very, very key in my life to recognize that something is going on, with this guy, and she would constantly sit me down and have conversations with me about why am I behaving like this, and try to get me to understand that actually I need to be focusing on other things. So that one phase in my life was a phase where I really did feel that things could have gone wrong, for me, because I was pretty just kind of out there doing my own thing. And
now you're a reformed man?
I'd like to believe so.
But, thank you for sharing that with us, Farhan. And, in a way that bivouacs us into a different part of the conversation, which I would have come to later. But, you mentioned that you grew up with a lot of rage. Earlier, we were talking about how the true test of something comes out in adversity. You were very young when your parents were divorced. You were 8 years old. And again, at that time, this was, not perhaps as common a phenomenon as it is now. Would you talk to us about how you dealt with it, looking back now? Do you think that there were structures or things that could have made it easier for you? How did you deal with it? And was your latent anger something to do with this divorce, or were there other reasons?
No, I think it had actually a lot to do with it. didn't have the ability like someone like Zoya had to be able to say what's on her mind very easily. I never had that ability. And still at times when it's something that is something that I feel very, very deep inside, it takes me very, very long to open up and say to the person that I'm feeling it for or against or with. But so that bottled up curiosity, the question as to what happened, what went wrong, did it have anything to do with the kids, all that stuff. I never spoke to my mom about it. I never spoke to my dad about it. I kept it entirely to myself. I used to go through severe depression when I was a kid, and all my mom's family would gather around and try to cheer me up, and I would never tell them what it really was. I would just make up random excuses like Zoya doesn't love me, stuff like that. And it really was, I think, just wanting to find out from my dad what had happened. And I finally, I then eventually did speak to him when I was about maybe 17 or 18. But from the age of 8 till about 18, I went through this phase where I had a lot of anger inside of me.
And so what finally helped you resolve it? You've mentioned Zoya, but there were two other women in this entire situation. There was Shabana and there was your mother, Honey, Did they play any role in have they played any role in who you are today? And did they not make it easier for you when you were a child?
No, both of them have, of course, done the best that they can possibly do. I think in all, my relationship with Shabana, the reason I think that it's as good as it is today is firstly to do with my mum not letting anything that she may have felt emotionally about that situation trickle down to Zoya or to me. So if she, of course she must have been disappointed, she must have been upset, she must have been angry, but she never made me or Zoya feel that we should also feel the same way. So I do feel that she has a huge role to play in my relationship with Shabana and Zoya's relationship with Shabana being good. And then of course the way Shabana was with Zoya and us. She's completely been there as much, I think, as a mother can be for kids. So they were both there, but I never found it easy to be able to speak to them. That I never did. And even with Zoya, I never went and spoke to Zoya. Zoya would be able to recognize that something is wrong and she'd come and speak to me. And that's really how all these conversations finally happened.
So, the fact that today you're speaking to us about it, is that process, is there formal? You also said that you used to drink a lot. I asked you, because it is about also a larger idea that many people suffer similar sort of situations, and there's a kind of emotional repression, certainly to do with boys. Was this just part of growing up, that you can now talk about it, and that maybe drinking is not as big a problem, I'm assuming, in your life anymore? Or it's okay if you confess.
No, it's not. It's not.
But was there any outside interventions, or was it just a rite of passage?
No, it just came to a point where I really did feel that I'm wasting energy, doing it. And so one was that realization. And then the second thing was this amazing experience of the Milkha film happened in my life in 2012. And everything that has happened for the preparation of that film, living that role, I just have not been able to go back to the kind of lifestyle that I had before that. My body won't accept it. So I'm very thankful, apart from other things, that film has done for me, that it's also made me realize that how important it is to stay healthy and stay fit.
Well, it's amazing that you're bringing that film as being such a, epochal thing in your life, because in other forums as well, you've spoken about the sense of invincibility that it created in you, both as an athlete, even as a human being, that it kind of really transformed your mental mindscape. Again, can you elaborate on that a little bit, and why it was so impactful, both as a film as well as to your mental mindscape?
Well, the thing with the Milkha film was, I was very clear after meeting Milkha ji, after meeting his family, that whatever I do in this film, regardless of what other people feel, regardless of how this film does, I want them to feel extremely, extremely proud that this decision of casting me has been made in the film. That I did want to do. So it really started from there, and I decided that it doesn't matter how hard I have to work, it doesn't matter how many hours I have to put in, it doesn't matter what all I have to stop doing, give up doing. What's important to me is this aspect of making the movie. And through that, I mean, the discipline of making it, I guess the passion of wanting to portray it in a certain way, it just made me very, very strong in my head. And then it came to a point, the more I was training, then the more I was living that life. For whatever, I'll just share how long the process was so that people know. The prep on the film, before we started filming, was 8 months of preparing for the role, which basically was an athletic session every morning for 3 hours and a training session every evening for 2 hours, and sleeping by 9 and waking up at 4. And this was for 8 months straight, right? So that's all I was doing. I didn't do a single ad film at the time. I didn't do anything else. I only did this. And while I was doing it, and the more I was training, I started feeling like, because I knew Rakesh was going to be bringing in athletes from different parts of the world to compete in the races that we'd be shooting. And I was like, I don't want them to come to set, to that stadium, and even for a second feel like they're working with an actor. I want them to know that I'm going to really push them, and I'm going to really, really like race hard, against them. And so it was just with that. So the more I trained, your mind with that discipline and with that focus, it really does become like steel. You really feel, not that you can do anything, but you feel like, that you can take anything on and you'll be able to accomplish it because you're just so in control of every single thing that's going on, and you don't give into any temptation, you don't give into any kind of vice or anything. And that training, and then 18 months, so 12 months after that of shooting the film, so it was an 18-month exercise of just living this life, has just given me a lot of discipline, it's given me a lot of focus about everything that it is that I do after.
And did it help take away or leach away some of this latent anger that you said that you feel? Did it have emotional impacts on you as well, or was it more about this discipline aspect?
No, I think it was more about the discipline. I'll share a very interesting story with you. When we announced the film, we were in Chandigarh, and there was a lady there. So Milkha ji very sweetly gave me his shoes, which he had worn at the Rome Olympics as a wish, a best wish for the shoot to follow. And there was a lady there who stood up and said, "आपने इसको फिल्म में क्यों लिया है? किसी पंजाबी एक्टर को क्यों नहीं लिया है फिल्म में?" So I didn't know what to say, but Rakesh very sweetly said what he had to say in defense of his actor. But that lady's question really stayed with me, And I was sure that at the end of this film, no matter where else we go to promote this film or where else we go to screen this film, we will 100% come back to Chandigarh because Milkha ji is from Chandigarh. And I was like, when I come back, I want to meet this lady after she sees this film. So I remembered her very clearly from that day, and she was such a motivation to me every single day when I would go. I'm serious, I'm not kidding at all. When I met her after that, I thought I'd be like, I'd be smug and I would say, "Dekha," when I meet her. But I actually thanked her when I met her. After that, I was like, I cannot thank you enough, because when you said that, I felt I really, really have to make sure I do this correctly, So, so I mean, it's interesting because things happen, and I mean, you can, like I said, with the whole Mard and the venting thing, you can be really negative about it. You can try and channelize it and do something, I guess, positive with it.
Well, Farhan's only sharing the good stories. Will you share that Mardangi story after Bhag Milka Bhag before we move away to other issues, which was your daughter, your daughter's sports day, and where you displayed a great degree of Mardangi on others?
Never in my life before this day that I'm about to talk about, never before and never since have I felt that it is impossible to lose. So that was the only time that I've ever felt it, because I was in the thick of training. I must have been training, it must have been the 7th month of training. And I went for my child's sports day, and then they announced the parents' race. And, and they said, "Will all the dads please come and run?" And a couple of dads knew I'd been training, so they said, "Cholo, hum log to aate hi nahi hai." But some others, of course, like I would have too if I was in training. I would have said, "Isko to main beat karke hi rahunga." So there were a few dads, and never before have I felt this confident, of that there is no chance that these people have. So I was genuine. I mean, in jest, of course, because I know all of them. But I was going up to them, I was thinking, tough, yeah, sorry. I'm really, really, really sorry. Before the race even began. It was fun. Yeah, that was it.
Well, there were some other famous dads there who've never forgotten that day either, including some other very mardangi men like Shah Rukh and John Abraham and all the rest of them, who all lost, of course. But Farhan, I'll come back again to your childhood a little bit later because there's some interesting anecdotes and takeaways from there about who you are today. But just moving away again into Twitter, talking again about your public interface with people. Is this a new phenomenon, one, that you're speaking up about a lot of issues? And then just the way you're really taking on the kind of negative flood that comes at you. Sometimes it's very interesting that you almost take them on individually, you're responding to them individually. Why are you spending this energy and what do you hope to achieve with it? And what has fixed the tonality in which you're doing it, which is very interesting?
The thing is, when I felt it's important for me to say something, I've never held back of saying it on Twitter or anywhere. And people have trolled me in the past for it. I've never felt the need to engage with them. But this time, what was very strange was I just tweeted about the cost of petrol going up and the fact that, at least in Mumbai, which is a fact, that almost 120% of that value, so the value plus 120% of it, the 120% is just state tax and cess and commission. So I'm like, maybe, since if crude oil price has gone up, hopefully maybe they can reduce a little bit of that. So it was just really it wasn't saying anyone's done a bad job. It wasn't pointing fingers at anyone. It was just a message out in hope, saying hopefully the prices can be brought down because most of this is in taxes and stuff. But that didn't go down well with a section of people on Twitter. And then they just started talking to me about, but you to drive this car, why do you care about petrol? I don't know what it has to do with anything. Bollywood has so much black money. I don't know what that has to do with petrol car price. So just many things like this. So I just felt, the fact is that somehow it is important that when people try to deflect away from what it is that we are trying to talk about, I just felt that I should kind of maybe this time engage with them, and have some kind of conversation. I've tried to keep it as, slightly in a lighter vein as much as possible. Some people have asked for slightly more direct and a firmer tone, so that's happened too. So a lot of that has happened, and the other thing that happens is, which is also in a tweet of mine where somebody has basically said that, the whole Akhtar Khandan is out spewing venom against the Prime Minister. So I was just like, it's okay for people to have an adverse opinion on an issue. It does not mean that you are maliciously attacking the government. It does not mean that you're maliciously attacking their leadership. And if people on Twitter believe that by you just differing with having a differing opinion, that you are attacking the government, then I just said that I believe that you are an extremely insecure lot, or then you've been very badly briefed. So it's one or the other. So the fact is, I haven't said anything about any one person. I only spoke about the price of fuel in Mumbai and just requesting, hoping that it could be brought down for people to just have a slightly easier existence.
So, as I said, this has been as a kind of common thread through the evening, so it's interesting that you're doing that and that you're engaging in the tone that you are. But let's just move away. We'll quickly finish with your childhood before we come to your, to your films and to your engagement with cinema and your fraternity in different ways. But he was a bit of a fantasist. When he was young, he used to tell his school children that he comes to school on a kite. He also told them that he's come to his class because he jumped off the roof and encouraged other children to do that as well. And another very interesting facet of all the speakers who come to Algebra and are very accomplished people are that they're mostly college dropouts, didn't complete their education, didn't finish school, were basically wastrels who suddenly became successes. This is a very important message that we are propounding. So, Farhan, you dropped out of college, you were not a good student. Would you advocate that for the rest of us, and why did that phase happen to you?
I don't think I would advocate that to people. The mistake that I made, which I realized in retrospect, the mistake that I made was that I inherently had a leaning towards storytelling, as you just mentioned, towards music, towards the arts, towards being creative. But I made the choice of going and enrolling myself into a commerce curriculum because all my friends were going there. So because all of them were going, I thought, I mean, you're going to college, you might as well be with all your friends. So I went there and I did 4 years of that, and I realized that I have zero interest in it. So be it accounts, be it economics, apart from on Twitter nowadays. Just many things like that. I don't have a leaning for it. And I was just there because of my friends. And then I soon realized that, like these 4 years of my life, I've kind of given to something that I'm not going to use really as I go forward. And so I stopped going. But in retrospect, I feel if I would advocate anything, it really would be maybe as parents, because at times kids can be confused. I today meet actually a lot many more kids who are a lot surer about what it is that they'd like to do when they go into higher education. But for the kids who are confused, I think it would be nice if the parents can try and understand and explain to them why it is maybe they should go down a certain path when they know, we can observe that they have a natural leaning towards something. So I never had those conversations with my mom or with my dad. I just decided, dost wahan ja rahe to main wahi jaunga. And I think that was the big mistake.
So you're saying that just watching films during that time helped you become and shaped your imagination, or was it just the rebellion,
During my college years?
No, during this time that you just dropped out and decided you wouldn't.
Yeah,
I think you sat at home for a year and a half.
I did a completely self-financed film appreciation course for 2 years. For 2 years. I watched every single film that I could get my hand on. It was the years of VHS. So everything that I could get my hands on. Luckily, my mum is an avid film collector, so she had a huge collection of movies. So I'd watch everything. When I ran out of them, I'd either watch them again or try and get something from somewhere else to watch. And pretty much for 2 years, I just sat at home and watched movies, much to the dismay of my mum and causing them a lot of stress. But that did happen, and I think that kind of prepared me for a life in film, about what kind of movies I like, how I'd like to tell my stories, what are my ideas of performance. So it was kind of a self-education of that.
You've mentioned somewhere that you really believe in Vipassana and that kind of inner silence. Have you ever lasted a Vipassana course? What triggered you to do it? And are there sort of other strategies that you use to arrive at the balance of yin and yang in your emotional life? And would you share that with us?
The things that I find most therapeutic actually are doing like playing music. I find very therapeutic. So just sitting at home and strumming the guitar, and we don't have to speak. You can just play music. I haven't been for Vipassana. I'm actually going this year in November for the first time. Yes. So, but apart from that, I do like meditation with like guided meditation. That's something that I do. I find this, I'm just indulging in some kind of activity that kind of cuts that brings your attention to the here and now, to me is always nice. So be it the cycling that I do, be it the skydiving, be it playing music. So it just keeps you always right there. And I find that as some form of meditation every time that I do it.
So, Farhan, Dil Chahta Hai was your first film, and it was all about love, and it had a very urbane, very chic sensibility. But you've said somewhere that it was a very autobiographical piece, and you said that Saif's character was very much you. That's hard to imagine today when you're the heartthrob, of many people. Can you talk us through that journey? Like, why were you such a sad sack in your youth? And
poor Saif. He was not a sad sack in the film. He was just confused. He didn't know what he wanted. He thought that the minute he met someone and was even remotely excited by this person's presence, he thought he was in love. So I used to be like that, which is what I was talking to you about as well. Your mind tells you things that actually aren't going on. So I very easily fell in love with people when I met them. My friends would laugh so much about it. So a lot of that is in Akash and Amir in the film. There's a lot of that as well. But yeah, so I don't think he's a sad sack. And especially now that you've told me that I've based it on I will have to fight you all the way.
I just said that there's this very tender expression in your voice for that character, just because you're describing yourself.
No.
For the viewers, it was a sad sack character. No? Okay. I think all of you are kind of referencing Farhan now, not Saif's character.
I want all these people who said no to be the only people who review my work from now on.
So, Farhan, everybody, in their lives in different ways has that transformation from ugly duckling, not physically, your inner...
Well, we started off with the wrong title and now it's just going from bad to worse. But that's fine. I was a pretty ugly duckling. I wish I carried my old passport photograph to show you all.
But as I said, it's not so much a sense of who you are physically, but your relationship with yourself. Now, clearly you had somewhat of an ugly duckling relationship with yourself. And you seem to be in the kind of more swan phase of your life with each other. So, again, to ask you, were there people, was there inflection people that helped you transform from that uneasy relationship with yourself to who you are today?
No, not really. I don't think there's people. I mean, if anything, it's just the trainer who actually kind of came into my life in 2004. I've been training with the same guy ever since. His name is Samir Jawra. So he was someone who used to be at the same gym that I used to go and do a terrible workout at. Just feeling all cool, lifting like only, just arms, like that kind of thing. So he came up to me and he said, listen, just let me train you for about 2-3 months. You really don't look like you know what you're doing. And if you're not happy, then, I'll move on. And if you feel good, then we'll figure something out and I can keep training you. And this was in 2000 and maybe end of 2003, beginning 2004. And it's now 2018, I'm still training with the same guy. So it's really, I think with him, working with him, understanding just fitness, understanding nutrition, understanding the value of sleep, understanding the value of rest, I think that just kind of eventually shows in the way you are.
So it changed your emotional arc as well?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
So, to come back to Dil Chahta Hai and your role as a director, that film shows such a great degree of self-confidence. Did you feel that when you were actually on set? Did that film just come rippling off your fingers and your imagination? And was it as smooth later with other films? Help us understand who you are as a director and how you've related differently with different films.
Dil Chahta Hai actually, I think, was, weirdly enough, although it was my first film, I think it was probably the easiest film for me to make because I was so connected with the script and with that world, and I somehow had imagined what I wanted to do with every scene, how every dialogue should be spoken, way before we even got into shooting the film. So I felt very confident actually on that movie, and for me, I think that I won't say uncomfortable because that's not the right word, but I think the most challenging film for me to do was the one that I did immediately after, which was Laksh. It was a very challenging film. It was about a world that I was very unaware of. There's nobody really closely associated with my family or in my family who's in the army. So for me to be able to have a sense of that life, that discipline, the ethic, just the way they are, that life. So to understand that, and then to be able to show it in a film where people who are from within the armed forces, when they see that film, when they turn around and tell you that, this is possibly one of the most well-researched, well-presented, army films that we've ever seen. So for me, that was a great victory, on that film. There's a very interesting story I must tell you about that film. The film released in 2004, and it had very moderate success at the box office. And I had worked so hard on making that movie. I'd never worked harder in my life than making that film. And there was a part of me that felt that because I've worked so hard on this movie, it is impossible that this film can't work. You know, because you feel like you've given everything to it. And it didn't do very well. And I was seriously depressed. And I was like, yaar, what do you need to do? I mean, like this, I really, you know, like for lack of another cliche, left no stone unturned to make it the best that I possibly could. And anyway, I mean, you know, so you just kind of deal with it and you move on. And last year, last year, I went to Dehradun to do a concert. And I hadn't been back to Dehradun since 2004, where we had a screening of the film at the IMA because we had shot at the IMA the year before. So I was going back to Dehradun after 13 years last year. And I wanted to go back to the IMA and just kind of revisit that place I hadn't been. So I got in touch with them. They were very sweet. They said, of course, please come. And they took me around. They showed me, I mean, we went to the locations that we had shot at as well, and now they've since then built a new Vikram Batra mess, has been built over there. They gathered all the cadets in that place, and we were having a conversation. There were roughly about maybe 1,000, 1,200 of them there. And one of the cadets asked me, you know, aapne laksh kyun banai? So I started telling them that it actually started, the genesis of it really was when my father went to Kargil on the 1-year anniversary of Operation Vijay being complete to lay a wreath at the Martyrs Memorial. And while he was there, he met a senior officer who was talking to him, and he was telling him, you know, that it's so, there's such a interesting scenario that everywhere there is so much praise about what the Indian Army has managed to accomplish, given the conditions, given the situation, given that we are fighting people who are, you know, like we are in a higher up, we're in a weaker position, but still we managed to do all this, and because of the bravery of our officers, our soldiers. Yet at the same time, with all this praise, is the reality that every single year, the number of people enrolling, enlisting to be officers is dwindling. So my dad was pretty surprised that that was the case, and he said that, you know, I'm going to make a film about this. So he started writing Laksh, and then he narrated the script to me, we made the film, and then of course, whatever happened with the film did. So I went back last year, and I told the story to them, and that's the reason he made the film. So the gentleman who is the adjutant major there, who's responsible for all the cadets, so he said, "एक मिनट रुकिए, मुझे आपको कुछ दिखाना है." So he took the mic and he said, यहाँ पर जो cadet लक्ष्य पिक्चर की वजह से IMA में enlist किए हैं, अपने अपने हाथ ऊपर कीजिए. And almost 70% of those cadets put their hands up. It was, my hair's standing now thinking about it only. So I mean, the power of what a film can do. One. And the second thing that hit me after 13 years of being depressed that this film hasn't worked at the box office made me realize that there is success to art and creativity that is beyond money and that is beyond the box office. And things that we put out there as ideas, you know, at times they may not work for people in that moment and may not be great business. But the idea can kind of live on, you know, and inspire people and motivate people to do things. And to me, that was a great learning that day to see what happened. And it's changed the way now I even think about movies when I'm making them and not worry about all this stuff like, Friday ko kya hoga?
So in fact, we'll come to what are your new creative projects, Farhan, but it's fascinating because you've worn many different creative hats, you know, both producer, director, you've been a rock star, you're an actor. It's going to seem quite a facile question, but you know, which sort of creative creative paddock do you actually enjoy the most? And very honestly, the adulation that you've got as a rock star and as an actor, has that kind of superseded the pleasures of being a director and producer? And has it changed you as a creative person?
Yeah, it would have changed. I'm sure it's changed me. I'm sure it has. But I think it's changed just on some level, I guess, my behavior when I'm out in public. I think that's basically it.
What do you do?
I don't speak much because words are very easily misconstrued. But no, but the thing to me that's important is when we were discussing Dil Chahta Hai, like I told you, to just try and always, before doing any film, whether it's as a producer or as an actor, and now very soon as a director again, which you'll hear about, is to try and somehow emotionally and mentally take myself back to that place where I was before I made Dil Chahta Hai. You know, and because when I was there was nothing to lose. You know, you had nothing to lose. You were given an opportunity to do a film. That's all you needed. You didn't need to think about what's going to happen after that. You know, all you had was, let me just work on this film, let me just make this the best that I can, and then whatever has to happen will happen. And if this doesn't work, I'll figure something out and do something else. You know, and just to try and go back there, because then you stop creating safety nets, you stop thinking about, you know, the what ifs, you stop trying to play safe all the time. You can be a lot more braver and you can have a lot more courage when you don't have that fear that if it doesn't work, then my life will be over. You know, so I try my best to go back there every single time before a film.
And then you didn't answer that question about who do you prefer being now? You know, the rock star, the actor, the director, producer.
I actually, no, it's difficult to say. I enjoy everything that I do. All of it, on some level, serves the same purpose, which is to engage and entertain people. So that I do enjoy. Currently, I really have been enjoying the music a lot. I've been, apart from, of course, performing and doing these Mard concerts, I've also been writing a lot of my own music, which I've started producing, and hopefully by January of 2019, I should have some of my original music out there for you to hear.
And you didn't bring your guitar today. So you had to renege in some way, you know. But, okay, we've run out of time. Just
Tea is served.
Just one quick last question. You know, you've been speaking, and it's very unusual because we've, you know, there are other actors and directors who don't take responsibility for the impact that cinema can have, but you very consistently have done that, you know. So just that, do you feel responsible in the kind of scripts you'll take? Do you curtail your creativity by kind of acknowledging the responsibility you have to society? Do you find that restrictive once you've acknowledged it? And secondly, you know, there's been a lot of crackdown on the freedom of speech. You know, you've mentioned in the past you're speaking out for Padmavati and, you know, the kind of disappointment that came when Sanjay backed out or Karan Johar backed out. Will you just talk about how you see this whole freedom of speech and freedom of expression issue and where you feel that people should perhaps have more courage?
You know, in all honesty, I have never felt that there is any curb on speaking freely. And I've never said that either. I feel that everyone has a right to say what they want to say. Nobody can stop you. You have to be able to deal with, I mean, if you're putting a thought out there, people will come back to you with their thoughts, maybe with their criticism, maybe with their abuse, that you have to be willing to deal with in your own way, how you would. But I've never felt that I should not say something for fear of repercussion. I've never felt that. And I don't feel anyone else should either. I think it's important that if there is something of value to say that could contribute to a narrative, to a conversation, to a debate, you must definitely speak up.
You know, I'm just going to put it to the audience because it is later than we had wanted the evening to be, but would you like to stop or would you like Farhan to read out some poetry? Okay.
Well, I have to. I must tell you, Shoma and everyone were very disappointed that I didn't bring my guitar. So I've promised her that the next time I will send only my guitar.
I told him, but I told him...
They seem very unhappy to see just me.
I told him that's fine as long as he sends his voice box as well, you know, so... Yeah.
So I think a poem is better. We could maybe. It's not better. Song is just poetry to music, madam.
Seize the day and ask for both. You
Okay.
know?
I'll say, what I'll do is I'll just say two poems. I think one which is important for me to share is the Mard poem. I'll share that. And then I'll share another poem from Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara to end it. So the first is the Mard poem because this is what we go when we do. This is something that we do share with all the students. जिसकी आंखों में है जगमगाती हुई जैसे गहरी शराफत की एक रोशनी, जिसके अंदाज में एक तहजीब है, जिसके लहजे में नरमी है, शब्दों में तमीज़ है, जिसके दिल में भी और जिसकी बातों में भी औरत के वास्ते पूरी इज्जत भी है, पूरा अदर भी है, जिसको औरत के जीवन का तन मन का सम्मान है, औरत के आत्मसम्मान का जिसको हर एक पल ध्यान है, जो कभी एक पल भी नहीं भूलता, औरत इंसान है, जिसमें अपनी भी पहचान है, जिसमें हिम्मत भी है, जिसमें शक्ति भी है, जिसमें गौरव है, आत्मविश्वास है, जो अगर साथ है, जो अगर पास है, उसके होने से औरत को अपनी सुरक्षा का एहसास है, जो औरत का एक सच्चा साथी है, एक दोस्त है, एक हमदर्द है, सच तो यह है, वही मर्द है. And now by popular demand, yeah. Why not? Actually nicer. जब जब दर्द का बादल छाया, जब गम का साया लहराया, जब आंसू पल को तकाया, जब ये तन्हा दिल घबराया, हमने दिल को ये समझाया, दिल आखिर तो क्यों रोता है, दुनिया में यूं ही होता है, ये जो गहरे सन्नाटे हैं, वक्त ने सबको बांटे हैं, थोड़ा गम है सबका किस्सा, थोड़ी धूप है सबका हिस्सा, आंख तेरी बेकार ही नम है, हर पल एक नया मौसम है, क्यों तू ऐसे पल खोता है, दिल आखिर तो क्यों रोता है. थैंक यू.
Farhan, to make up for the fact that you didn't bring the guitar, give us the first preview to what your next creative venture is going to be. What is it that we're going to hear about that you're directing?
That I'm directing?
Oh, okay, you're doing something else.
I unfortunately can't speak about that just yet. This is that same person who on Twitter, no matter what I post, always says Don 3. Has to be. But I must tell you, like no matter what I post on Twitter, like you know, whether it's heartiest congratulations on your wedding, we want Don 3. Deepest condolences, we want Don 3. Tragic to hear about, we want Don, and it doesn't matter what I'm feeling, what my emotion is, what people want Don 3. Well, we'll get to that for sure. The thing that we're very busy with right now, which hopefully will release on August 15th, is a film called Gold, which is inspired by independent India's first Olympic gold win at the 1948 Olympics. Yeah.
And you're acting in it?
No, I've produced it. So yeah, so that's releasing this year.
Okay. Thank you very, very much, Farhan. There was a lot to take away from that, but thank you. And thank you, everybody. As Payal said, a lot of you have expressed a desire to become members of Algebra. Please write to team@algebratheclub.com. And also we have a website called www.algebratheclub.com. You can catch a lot of our earlier conversations there. Farhan even sang earlier, so you can make up for his absent guitar. And really look forward to seeing all of you. Thank you for being such a wonderful audience. Thank you. Thank you, Farhan.